Hi, so as I've just said, I wanted to look at criterion B, and I've just said that we had to allow the students to reach all levels of the rubric from level 0 to 8. So what I've done is that I have, let's say, allowed myself to take screenshots of MYP exams. So once again, I can perhaps just go through it to show you where it is if I haven't done it before. I don't remember. So when you are under MYP, if you go just on MYP and you select mathematics, then, sorry if I repeat myself, then you'll see past session material and you can download a copy. I think I've told you that, but I'm not sure. So if I go to November 2019 session, there is generally about 5 past exams which are available, and then you can select it. But I think I've told you that before. So if you look at the screenshots, what you'll see is that we are exploring a situation which might be linked to real life or not. It's not because it is linked to real life that it will become a criterion D if the only thing that the students have to do is to follow the criterion B structure. I would assess it using criterion B. If, however, you want the students to find rules and to do something with it, then it could become a criterion D task, but I would probably not assess criterion B within it because perhaps I will not ask all of these little questions which will guide the students in order to reach all levels of criterion B. It is possible to do both together, but often it's easier to just say, let's say, today we are going to do a criterion B task about the subject, and then later on, once the students have done it and have perhaps understood their mistakes, then you can give a second task where they will transfer their skill in the summative assessment task for criterion B. So here there was something which was seen. Let's say here was the area of rhombuses, and then we had stages and they could find the vertical length of the rhombus, and then it went from 4 to 16 to 36 and to 64, and then you see that there is 2 missing values. These missing values are predictions, actually, because you understand the pattern. So if I go back to my criterion B, which is actually right here, then you see that you can state predictions. So I am allowing the students to have the 1-2 level. If I go back to here we can describe the patterns. So they can describe in words what's happening. So here they can say to increase more and more, increases more and more, but here you see it's plus 12 and then plus 20 and then plus 28. So the increase is always 8 more than the precedent increase gap. So it would be plus 36, which would be 100, and then plus 44, which would be 144. So they can describe that as well. And then you can write a rule, and what they would say in the report, because what I might have said or not, once again, is that when you go here, you have also subject reports about past examinations, and in these documents they often they have given more details about what they expect in criterion B, for instance. Also, there is the further guidance for MYP mathematics, which might help as well. So going back to it, then you have a general rule. So here it would be a quadratic function that the students would find, and then it would say if the students find the rule but doesn't write v equal something, then they would not have a rule that would provide a relationship between these two quantities, and here you can hear the concepts within it. Then they have to verify the rule. So using another one here, I still have to look in the future years what it will say. Normally what they say about verifying is that it's outside of the given values. Of course, if you use stage 1 to 4 and you just test it, they will state that it is to test the values to see if the rule to test the rule. If you verify the rule, it's outside of these values. But I've seen I've seen once where the 5 and 6 would be considered like testing, but in other exams it would be considered verifying. Of course, if I would use stage 7 and make a prediction, and then by doing like the +8 on each time, then +44 and then +52, I would have a number, and then I could use a rule and verify if I use a rule, do I come up with the same number? And if I do so, they say to explicitly say it, that the number that they've got like by just following the pattern would come to the same result as when they use a rule, so that verifies the rule. And then there was a question about other patterns. So here you see that there are many columns, so there are many rules that you can say. And here you can see once again, they will not guide them like with A, B, C, D, E, but they will ask the students to do all of that. And here you can see the test or general rule that is here, and then you have the justification as well. So it's really like something that you do repetitively, perhaps, and there were really good resources given in module 2 and the activator. So I really like what I've seen, and there were examples that could be used here for criterion B. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you had some details about criterion D. So you see here that you can suggest rules, you can talk about the rules, say how they work, you can describe the patterns as general rules, especially when they get in the older years, as you've seen, and then you can verify and try to justify the rules. And I have some examples of that as well, where we have a pattern, we find a rule, and then we try to explain why the rule would always work, and sometimes the rule that we find can also be proven, so that would allow to reach level 8. Okay, so I'll go back to my document here. So you see I've taken quite some time to just go back to assessment, because I know there are generally many questions about it. But basically you were right about the criteria that you had chosen in your summative task. I just wanted to make sure that you grasped the idea for future tasks. Then in the approaches to learning forum, it's another thing that we want to see. I really like there's something like in module notes that didn't really fit, because there was like an activity where, let's say that what I wanted to tell you is that we generally would write within our unit like using that pattern. We would identify an approaches to learning category, a skill cluster, and then an indicator, and we link it to one of the strands. So we just talked about the strands. We'd like to have something. So here I might not have done an example, but the idea is like, in order for student 2, and then we choose a strand, and then the students must, and then you can choose a skill indicator. Once again, if you click on my post, I have given the MYP from principles into practice, but basically here, if you look at my unit plan as well, here I just directly like put the appendix of the MYP from principles into practice, and then you can see the skill categories, which is on top. Perhaps what would better like show how it works is with the thinking skills. So thinking here would be the skill category. The critical thinking skills or creative thinking skills and transfer skills would be the skill clusters, and then the indicators is like one dot. So if you want to perhaps test generalization conclusions, or draw conclusions and generalizations which could be associated with criterion B, I could select a criterion B strand and use that strand, and then the idea will later to be able to teach these skills to the students explicitly. If I would go to communication skills, you'll see that there are things which are directly related to mathematics. Doesn't mean that you only have to select these, of course, but of course organizing and depicting information logically is something that we do. Of course, we can understand and use mathematical notation, we can make inferences and draw conclusions, perhaps in correlation. So there are many things that we can use here. Also, so the idea here is just to select like a strand and a skill indicator that goes with it. Of course, if you would go with a second category 2 workshop, then we'd have to define the activity explicitly. What's a word forum is basically using the module nodes. You just have to answer, like choose one of these words or terms and just say here one thing interesting about it and one thing which is unclear, and try to respond to each other. So it's pretty much clarify things and still fun short activity. And then including all learners forum. There are pages from the guide, once again, page 27, 28. There are many more publications about that subject, of course, but just to have a first introduction to it, on how we can help students with learning support needs. So this is something that we want to do, something that you might agree, something that you might try difficult, and once again can share your thoughts among each other. So that's pretty sure. So there's not like many things perhaps to create, but there are things to just delve into it, just try to understand better in this module to help you, of course, implement MYP, mathematics MYP in your school. So I hope it helped, and I wish you a really good week. Thank you.